from Michael Ferris. The Department of Homeland Security called a member of the legal team for the Romica family, and they had been granted indefinite deferred status. I asked Michael, what happened? How did this happen? And he said, there's really only one explanation, Glenn. There's no other way to explain this. This is a miracle. Michael Ferris is with us now from the Homeschooling Legal Defense. Is it a Legal Defense Association?
That's correct.
Okay. Michael, first of all, let's talk a little bit about what happened with the Romica family, because it's remarkable. Yesterday at this time, we were talking about how do we help this family. There's nothing left. Supreme Court turns the case down. And then the phone call comes in?
It was about as strong of a whiplash I've ever had in my life, in an emotional roller coaster. I take cases like this extremely personally, and I was suffering with the Romicas. Not as much as them, but it's their family. But I identify with my clients very closely. And when I got this call, I just frankly couldn't believe it. But I eventually came to my senses and said, this is victory. This is victory for them. And so for their own situation, this is great. But the downside of winning it this way is it's only for them. We don't set a precedent that helps us with other German homeschooling families. We don't set a precedent that reverses all the bad tracks that were being led through the Sixth Circuit decision and so on. So for parents' rights in general, we haven't gained the victory that we need. This family got a victory, but we've got a lot of work to do for all the rest of us.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Michael, because you also run parentalrights.org. And you and David Barton have been working on some things. I called David Barton a couple of weeks ago, and I said, David, what can we possibly do? And he said, there is a law in 6 states that has been passed, and it stops things like Justina. It stops things like you have a right to discipline your child the way you see fit. You have a right to raise them the way you see fit. Religious, education, and health care are all under this particular law that has been passed in 6 states. In a nutshell, can you tell me what it says?
The liberty of the parents to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their child is a fundamental right. That's it.
Okay, that's it. That really is the bill.
Yeah, and that's the there's a couple of other sentences. It's very short. I helped to write the laws in 3 of those states that have it. Others had it on the books independently, which I was really glad for. But the big debate in our society in courts over parents' rights is whether they're fundamental rights or non-fundamental rights. The Supreme Court created these 2 arbitrary categories of rights, and if you have a fundamental right, you're geared up to win. If you have a non-fundamental right, you're geared up to lose. And so all the burdens, all the benefits go with the government on non-fundamental rights. All those things go with the individual in fundamental rights cases. So calling parents' rights a fundamental right is crucial to be able to win these cases.
And the rest of the world is going towards the rights of the child, that UN charter. Everything is going that way. And so we need to dead stop that and go the other direction in all 50 states if we can, but at least as many as we possibly can. At least in your state, wherever you're living, you better get this passed in your state. And this will stop what, Michael?
It will stop the government from assuming that it has the ability to parent your child, or whether that through the social services agency, like in the Peltier case, or like the Michigan case that you referred to yesterday on TV about. It was virtually the same as the Massachusetts case, and I litigated that one. Those kind of cases are where the social services agencies try to take over and become the parents. The case in New Jersey yesterday where the 18-year-old suing, she's basically asking the court to become her parent and to order her family to do her whims, which is the essence of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. That whole philosophy needs to be stopped dead in its tracks, and we need to say parents are in charge of raising their kids, not the government, not the courts, not the public schools, not the kids themselves. You rule out only one person can be the decision maker for a child.
Okay.
It's going to be the parents.
Right now,
not any of these other things.
Right now, we have people all over the country that hear from their schools or their school districts or their teachers or their principals, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. This is just, it's state mandated. And you're like, well, I want to opt out of this. I'm sorry, you can't. It's state mandated. Would this cause any inroads into those arguments being stopped?
It would completely turn around the opt-out ideas of, they have a dramatic, horrible sex education assembly coming down the pike. Parents would gain clearly the right to opt out of those things. What would not be able to do through this kind of legislation is to force the school from stopping to do that. The school could still...
Well, that's fine.
Parent, yeah, let them do their stupid stuff.
Yeah, I just want to opt out of that. Yeah,
that's right.
So would it also help strengthen the case against Common Core?
It would. That was a little more indirect but your ability to opt out of it would be enhanced considerably. Your ability to speak up against it. The guy that got thrown out of the school board meeting, speaking up against the Common Core, his rights would have been strengthened to speak up and to be able to protest and say, look, I don't want to do this. And he would be exercising a fundamental right in that context. And so it would strengthen parents' rights generally on the decision-making level, but it would not give them control over the curriculum itself. And the Common Core is a mixed battle. And so you need multiple weapons to fight something like that.
All right, we're talking to Michael Ferris. He is with parentalrights.org about a new bill that we want you to take and get on the website and get passed in every state. Get it passed in your state, parentalrights.org.
I think the one clear concern here, Michael, would be what about in cases of clear abuse? I mean, is there a provision in the law for exceptions in those cases where, the parents are obviously unfit?
Absolutely. There's a difference between a fundamental right and an absolute right. And when the government has a compelling interest in stopping somebody from abusing their child, clearly satisfies the compelling interest test.
Yeah, well, and what is this? Because it's the second line. Give the first line again, and there's only two lines, and the first line says it's a fundamental right. Can you give both lines? Do you know them off the top of your head?
I can come really pretty close.
Okay.
The second line says that that the only exception to this is where the government has an interest of the highest order that's not otherwise served. And by the way, that language comes word for word out of the famous Supreme Court decision called Wisconsin versus Yoder, the Amish case involving public education from 30 years ago or so. And
both of these lines, if I'm not mistaken, both of these lines came from Supreme Court cases. So it's a fundamental right for the education, welfare, and health of the child, fundamental right for the parent to decide. Next line is basically that, unless the government or the state or locality has a clear and demonstrable need that is not being met any other way.
That's right. And so if you need to stop child abuse, that's a compelling interest. And what it boils down to is our statute requires them to have evidence of that, whereas otherwise they're just going to assert, we've got, it's important that we intervene in these cases and so on. I think of a case that I argued in the North Carolina Court of Appeals once, and in that case it was actually a Fourth Amendment case where the social workers were trying to get into the house to see what was going on with this family, and then one of the judges said, well, don't we need to go in because we don't know what's going on in the home? I said, Your Honor, it's true, we don't know what's going on in the home. We don't know what's going on in your home, and we don't know what's going on in my home. And if we don't know is enough to get into people's houses, we can go into everybody's house in this country. And what we need is evidence. If you have evidence of wrongdoing, then you can act. But without evidence, you're not getting into the house if we're going to follow the Constitution. And so
this is right.
That's the principle that we have to follow, is that if you're going to intervene in a family with their kids, you have to have evidence that they're harming their child. You got evidence that they're harming their child? okay, that's fine. But if you don't have evidence that they're harming their child and you can prove it in court, then you need to let the parents raise these kids.
Well, the other argument to this is essentially a general warrant, isn't it? And that's kind of exactly
that's
what
exactly
we
right.
came here to fight against.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I can't tell you the number of social workers I've intervened with over the years. It's a lot, hundreds if not thousands. And their view is the Constitution doesn't apply to them, that they can go into anybody's house at any time. And we've litigated these case after case after case, and they're just simply wrong. The Constitution does apply to them. They work for the government, and they've got to live by the Constitution.
Yeah. Michael, I so appreciate what you guys are doing, and congratulations. Truly a miracle yesterday on the Remike family. And I think we're headed towards a miracle in Boston. But we need more than the media and organizations like you and God. We need to do everything in our power to stop and then rely on God. And what we can do is pass this in all of our states. And you can find this at parentalrights.org, parentalrights.org. Michael, thank you so much for all of the work that you do. I think you're a very important organization.
Teamwork. We appreciate you very much.
God bless you. Thank you very much. Parentalrights.org. Please push this forward in your own state. And keep us up to date. Let us know what you're doing.